Hello once again, it's Mr. Pete, your interweb shop teacher, and this is tips number 839, which is part 5 of my 6-part series on the ATLAS gear cutting attachment, and this part is entitled Making the Index Shaft. I've made this much so far, and today we'll make the shaft. It would help a lot if you had also watched the first 4 parts, and there will be one part after this part. So let's begin. So the shaft here is what I'm going to make today, and I'm going to depart greatly from the drawings, which I will show you in a second here. But let me tell you that this is a piece of 3/4 inch round stock already cut and faced to length. But what they're telling you in the drawing is to start with 1¼ inch stock like this, and turning down the ends and then grinding the middle part. Well, that's pure insanity. I'm not going to do that, and I don't think you would want to either. So I suggest that you follow my method, but you will have access to these drawings if you want to do it the other way. So let's look at the drawings, and then we'll get back and I'll tell you how I'm going to do this. This is the original ATLAS drawing, and you can see that the shaft looks almost overly complicated, and I want to get away from that by my method, but I will put still pictures at the end of this video with these dimension drawings if you're interested. Let's take a look at another one. And here you will see the Casting Specialties drawing, a little bit different. The threads on the end are a lot bigger on this. I'm not sure why the original showed a 5/16 diameter thread, way too small. This shows 1/2 inch coarse, which is what I'm going to use, but I think I'll use 1/2 inch fine. This is 1/13. I'll make it 1/20. And here's the third version. This also shows very small diameter threads on the ends and suggests that it be ground right here. No, you don't want to do that, but we will be putting this undercut into the shaft, and I'll talk about that later. All right, let's do some layout and some machining. All right, that'll pull right out. Again, this is 3/4, 8 1/4 long, and it fits so nicely in this reamed hole. There's no slop, no play, so it's just what we want. And what I want to do here is to make collars like this, 2 of them. Now this is a die cast one that I had in a junk drawer, but essentially I'm going to have a collar on both ends, and then we don't have to turn it down to all those weird diameters. That doesn't quite go on. But I have 2 of these that I've had kicking around forever. They're about 3/8 thick, 1¼ inch in diameter. Now that's a 1/2 inch hole, so I'm going to bore those out, I should say ream them out, 3/4 inch, drill and ream. And then one will be pinned onto the shaft with pins, and on the other, this end, I believe I'll use set screws, but I'm not totally sure yet. So that'll really simplify it. This is so simple it's almost not worth showing, but I'm going to do 2 of these. One is already in the chuck. That is a 47/64 drill bit, and then I will ream 3/4. Okay, that collar fits on there nicely, and I've got another one for the other end, although I might use this. Again, you can probably get these at the box stores, either machined or die cast in different sizes. You probably won't have one of these to start with, so you might have to make it up out of 1¼ or 1½ round. The OD doesn't matter very much. Now the drawings that I have shown you show different diameters at the end and different threads, but remember, this is a gear cutting attachment, and probably the very first project that I will do is this gear right here, and this is a 5/8. So I will be turning this end to 5/8 diameter to fit a gear blank of this size. And then on this end I can use either this as my template, although it's in terrible shape. See, it's lost its form and is damaged and worn. So again, this is what, 22 teeth, I believe, and I probably will put this one on the other end. It is more than 22, I believe it's 44, so I can use this as my template and catch it just on every other one. But the point I'm getting to here is that this is a smaller hole, and it is 9/16, so 5/8 and 9/16, and then I may have to make other shafts if I decide to cut other gears that have different diameter holes, or modify them with bushings or spacers or whatever might get the job done. So this collar will be pinned with one of these pins at this point, which is 1 5/16 as per drawing. I'll just make a little mark there because this is not pinned yet. And I will take it over to the lathe now, and I'm going to turn it to 5/8 diameter up to the line, and then I'm going to, I don't know the length yet, but 1/2 inch diameter and thread it 1/2 20. Let's go to the lathe. Okay, I'm ready to turn down to my red line, which I've already laid out, and I have a stop set, and the diameter will be 5/8. Okay, I'm right on. And now I will turn it down to 1/2 inch diameter, 5/8 long. I have a stop set again. Now you can single point thread this if you want. In fact, I believe that is why the drawing shows an undercut there. But since I'm going to use a 1/2 20 button die in this holder in the tailstock at slow speed with plenty of oil, I don't believe I'll need the undercut. But I'm starting from the tapered side, and I will go up to the shoulder, and then I will reverse the die, and that'll give me a thread that goes a little bit, a full depth thread pretty close to the shoulder, and that's going to work because we're going to use washers in there anyway. But this is what I prefer to use. Do it any way you want. Mr. Pete, do you have any suggestions when you're using a die? Well, I sure do. First of all, put a healthy chamfer on the end where you're going to start your die and start from the correct size. And I like to go 4 or 5 thousandths undersize. So I'm at, really, instead of 500, about 496 or so. And then the die will start much easier, and you're still going to have a very good thread. And the sample nut threads on just fine. So what I'm going to do now, off camera, you do not need to see this, I am going to take this on the drill press and drill a 5/32 hole all the way through and drive a roll pin, spring pin in there. Any size is fine, but I'm going to use a 5/32. And then, of course, the gear will go on there that you're going to cut. Visualize a gear blank. And then some spacers that I haven't made or come up with yet, or washers or whatever, and then the nut will go on there. And this is extra long here because we're not really sure what the thickness is of gears that we may conceivably cut over the years. So trying to make this reasonable in diameters and dimensions and all that. Now this is the size thread they recommended originally, and I don't know why that's small. I wasn't going to show this setup, but I believe that I will. The work is held on a parallel in the vise, and I've already used the edge finder to find the center of it. That is a center drill, and I'm going to drill all the way through, but I'm afraid of this kind of working its way out. So that's the purpose of this little vise on there that will hold that collar in place while I both center drill and final drill. Alright, the pin is put in place, and always drill all the way through. You never want to drive a pin into a blind hole or it will come back and bite you. Also note I positioned the collar just a little bit on one side of the shoulder here so that when I put a gear on there or a blank, it will go all the way up to the shoulder. Now, will this gear be held on there tight enough with a nut so that it doesn't spin during cutting? The drawing, I think, shows a little keyway in there, so I'll think about that later. I don't want to think about that now. I'll think about it tomorrow. I decided that I'm going to use this die cast collar, but I got to clean it up just a little bit with the 3/4 reamer. Make sure you have plenty of reamers on hand in all sizes, both power and hand reamers. You will love them. So with the work installed in there, like that, this collar can be put on there and snug down because it will have to be removed from time to time. So that's why there's a set screw here rather than a pin. Now you could put a pin in there, but this is what I prefer. And then we've got some threading and turning to do on this end too. I faced off both sides of this just to thin it up a little bit because it calls for 3/8, so that will go up against the shoulder there. And this is the gear that I'm going to copy, and it's an 11/16. It's really kind of a weird bore, so I will turn this down to 3/16 until that fits on. And then I will turn the rest down here to 1/2 13 for a nut, so there'll be room for a washer on there, I hope. This is kind of a thick gear compared to the other ones. I don't know if that'll present a problem. I should have cut this shaft just a little bit longer than what it is. Now I'm not going to show that turning and threading because it's identical to what I showed you on the other end, so I'll be back in a few minutes. Alright, this is what I just completed here, 11/16 and 1/2 20. Let's put it in there and see what it looks like. And then this collar. Now if that set screw buggers up the shaft, I can always mill just a little bit of a flat on that, but I'll snug this up for now. And then in the very first gear that I cut, I'm going to use this as my template. Again, 11/16 bore, but will the nut hold it and keep it from spinning? The drawing calls for a keyway right here. I do not intend to do that. Well, who knows? But I was thinking of drilling a hole and putting a pin in there, about a 5/32 pin. I will do that later on if that becomes necessary. But to finish up here, then a washer and a fine nut. And then same thing on the other side, other end. But what I noticed here, that's not it. On this one there is no keyway. So will that slip when I cut it? Because, you know, there'll be a lot of vibration and all of that on there. But anyway, that'll go on like that. And I don't have the spacer yet. This probably would work as a spacer, and then a nut, and then a washer, and then the nut. So there it is in its rough form. Now, one other thing that I need to do, and if you look at the drawing, you'll see that there's an undercut right there. Now, the purpose of the undercut is that so the set screw, where's my knob? Boy, do I have a mess here. There's the knob. We don't want your screw to make a mark on the shaft and then you can't get the shaft out. Well, I've got the brass pin on there, but nevertheless I am going to put an undercut in there, and I have another reason for that which I will disclose in a few minutes. The drawing calls for an undercut 1 inch long, but I'm going to just eyeball this. I know, I'm going to eyeball it. So from there, 1 inch would be there, but I want it longer than that, and I'll tell you why again in a minute. So I'm going to make an undercut that long, and how deep? Oh, 23-30 seconds is what the drawing calls for, but kind of doesn't matter. Okay, the undercut is complete, and it's about 700 thousandths is what it is. But let me show you something here. This is the diamond tool holder that I have been using in all 5 parts so far. Now, that was not suitable for the undercut, but the other one is what I just used a minute ago, and that just worked beautifully for going back and forth and getting into both of the shoulders. The finish here could matter less. Okay, I have the whole attachment in the vise here just so I can demonstrate something. These are 3/4 nuts, but when I get ready to cut a gear, a fellow will take 2 wrenches and he'll just tighten that as tight as he can get it, and that'll be great. But when it comes to loosening it up, when the job is done, you know what's going to happen. You will loosen these up, and one will spin off and the other one will be tighter than a, well, you know how tight it'll be. So how am I going to solve that problem? Right here, if you can see that little red mark next to this, I am going to drill a 3/16 hole, or maybe a little bit bigger, all the way through the aluminum piece and through the shaft, and it will occur there where the undercut is, so that if one of these nuts won't come off, I will simply stick a screwdriver or something through that hole, and that will lock the shaft so I can loosen up the nuts. Make any sense at all? Okay, I drilled the hole all the way through, so if these are really tight, and they are right now, watch what happens when I go to loosen them. See, this one is loose, but how will I loosen that? Any old, that's a 7/32 hole, but now that goes all the way through and locks it, and I can loosen it. So that's the purpose of that, and that was not on the drawing, and it is certainly optional for you. And here is the hole that goes all the way through, and it did end up, of course, in the undercut, and this will hit someplace over here. And I decided to cut that keyway. Well, there's the keyway that I cut, and I don't know if that was smart or not, because it will not necessarily match various gears or templates that I put on there. But that really completes the job. And the shaft was ready to assemble, and I will do all of that in part 6, so be sure and watch that. I will not cut any gears, but I'm just going to finalize it and show you how it's going to work on the machine, and that will complete this 6-part series. Be sure and watch all parts. I hope you are enjoying it. This has been about 2 weeks up to this point. Not full time, but I've been working for 2 weeks. So that's it for now, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.